Everyone to the Tools of the Trade live stream. I'm your host, Captain Cole, and I'm joined by my co-host Trip, better known as Crypto ISO on Crypto Twitter. We got an awesome episode for you guys today, with lots to talk about, lots to get into. But before I get started, would you please do me a favor, smash that like button, make us look good for the YouTube algo. Also want to take a quick second to thank our sponsor Phemex, one of the only non-KYC derivatives exchanges left in crypto. Click the link in the description below to get up to $6,000 in sign-up bonus. Now, the last thing I'll say before we get started here on Tools of the Trade, we are not financial advisors, and this information is for educational purposes only. Welcome, everyone, to the Tools of the Trade live stream. Trip, my man, how you doing?
Good. Exciting price action, to say the least.
This is a good day to stream, to talk price action. A lot's happened since our last stream. Was that Thursday? 4 or 5 days? An eternity in crypto, as they say. But yeah. What's kind of, I guess, let's just do a little background. What's our thoughts on, I guess, the last 4 or 5 days of price action? And then we can kind of just jump into details. Overall thoughts, Trip. I guess, since last stream when Phil was on, prices were like 26Ks, and now we're sitting at the 28Ks.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a couple paper cuts trying to kind of scalp liquidity around like the pockets that, 27.1, 27.5, and now here we are at 28.2, which is that month-long liquidity pocket. For me, it's like okay, we had it over a weekend and we had it on a holiday with a move. That's one factor for me. The other factor is, and this is like something that can't be ignored, is this is, probably one of the more bullish things for Bitcoin as a whole, seeing that the people involved or the entities involved on the ETF side of things are the most reputable ones in traditional financial services. That can't be ignored, right? But as someone who's been focused on market structure and that's been largely right, you're going to be wrong at some point. So we had talked about 23.9 being this really interesting area, kind of 24K. Things are not perfect when they hit levels, right? So we got 24.7. Can that be the bottom? 100%. It looks very reminiscent of 19.5 in terms of how it's come into demand zone, and we've broke a downtrend now. We're above the 50-day moving average and the 100-day moving average. The idea of like 24K to 28K is still very much in my mind, of like those were the two big areas of where price was kind of there were magnets for price, right? I think if you trade above 28.5 and you hold it, then you've just made a higher high, basically, relative to kind of what we have been considering the lower high. That said, it's interesting that the way risk is traded relative to Bitcoin in particular, I think it's important, and I don't think it's any real secret that this is Bitcoin led, which is typically a very bullish thing for the market. And it's almost a perfect storm of events where altcoins are under the microscope as securities. There's kind of a crusade in that regard of, okay, how do we like get rid of the crap in the space? And now you have the Bitcoin ETF stuff. So it's like the dominance part of the argument, whether you look at the chart or not, there's two big factors driving price. And you can see it's very spot driven based on derivatives pricing versus Coinbase. That was one thing that I probably should have taken into account more, as even just trying to take some scalp shorts, is just Coinbase is like driving the bus here. And you got looking at derivatives pricing, like if that is largely above like $50, $60 premium, that means that yes, there's a lot of longs. Like this is where probably the histograms come in, which Amoeba looks at. That derivatives are shorting it and spot is buying it, right? And if they have the notion, if the people who want to buy this right now don't care if they buy it at 26 or 28 because they think it's going to 36 or 40, because like, if that's your high or low right there, that's the mentality of the market right now. We're sitting in the liquidity pocket. 27.2 is the monthly open. We kind of just talked about this. But when Bitcoin trends and does these things, like it doesn't really let you in. So I'm sidelined for now. I don't really know what I want to do. But that's kind of my mindset. We can look at some charts, like Bitcoin relative to ES right now is very strong. right? So
Yeah,
a
let's
lagging
actually pivot
asset.
there and throw that on, and then we can kind of jump in from there. Why don't you
Sure.
show us your BTC ES chart, and we can kind of talk about how, I think we're both in agreement here. The macro now has very little to do with the markets, right? We have the ETF-driven news, short covering, is this the bottom, quote unquote, etc. Macro has not been that impactful over the past several days, right? We saw that decorrelation between crypto and equities, crypto being much weaker last couple of weeks, and now we're seeing obviously BTC show some strength and kind of leading the market out of this recovery.
Yeah, so this is Bitcoin versus ES, right? And it's crazy. Bottom band hit. I thought we were going to come down to the bottom channel, but now we are kind of this midpoint here. But this is clear strength since Friday.
Yep.
Uh, and futures weren't open, obviously, but like right at the open, like, Bitcoin was like heavily bid today.
Yep.
And it's obvious because it's like versus, and if you look at ETH BTC, and we kind of just talked about this. The interesting thing about how ETH bottomed was like it hit every single thing that we wanted it to do. It went to 1640. It was a liquidity pocket. It was the 61.8. It was the 200-day moving average. And then you had ETH BTC showing weakness, and it's like, oh well, if this is going to roll over, then Bitcoin is kind of a delayed reaction to go down. And that was literally my mindset. And I think you shared something similar when we were talking about this, because like, look, you can see the ETH tab right now.
Yep.
Yeah, look at this. This is like, I don't know if it gets any cleaner. Um, Whereas like if this was BTC, it probably was like here. But there's so much confluence around this, and then when you pull up ETH BTC, like I think it's loading. I mean, it's like kind of breaking down right now,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's obviously Bitcoin going up at a faster rate. But yeah, as it feels right now, like the local bottom and probably the higher low is that 24.878 zone.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like, so how do you get in along? Mm, Monthly open, maybe. I mean, it's holding above. Like everyone wants to get long, right? So a
Yep.
leverage flush, maybe it's the 100-day moving average. I'll show you guys on the Bitcoin chart, but uh, you trade above the 50, the hundreds right here. I mean, we broke the downtrend. Like, I doubt you get a perfect retest in any of this stuff here. I don't know is the answer, so you kind of have to like watch it for a little bit. But I do think you'll get a leverage wipe, but it won't matter to anyone that's long here or even here probably, because they're like, all right, cool, we'll probably add. And so in these instances, if you do get drops, the speed at which things are bought up is going to be probably pretty apparent to where like how this looked, right? So
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
uh, yeah, I mean, kudos to those people who were long and called us anons for not being long because BlackRock was everything. So it's like, I don't know, it's part of the game. We got a lot of shorts right. This is a trend change and this is going a lot higher, right? Then we'll figure out a place to get involved.
Nice. Yeah. So kind of just to echo that, right? I want to talk about ETH for a second, right? And the reason I
Yeah.
want to talk about that is because ETH to me right now is, like we said, like in a technically super interesting spot. I posted about this over the weekend. I throw on the 3-day Ichimoku, which everyone knows my favorite trending indicator, right? So 3-day Ichimoku look back, looking at Ethereum on the 3-day, right? So first thing I just spot is like this. I talked about this 23, 24K, but on ETH it was similar. It was like 1670, right? Yeah, 1670 to 1610. This 3-day demand block. And then, okay, so we came into that, nice. And then if we look to zoom in, we also came right into the 3-day Kijun, right here. Okay, nice. So that's two factors of confluence. And now it kind of looks like on this 3-day, we might even have a 3 inside up close in about 2.5 hours. If you guys remember from probably like a month ago, we talked about ETH BTC. And I'll show that in a second. A 3 inside up on the daily, I think it was. Basically, you have a down candle come down. You have a bottom candle that closes at least halfway up the previous bottom candle, or the previous down candle, sorry. And then the third candle closes above the highest price of the down candle. That's called a 3 inside up reversal formation. It's just like a technical candlestick chart pattern that I've always enjoyed. So that's potentially going to close in about 2.5 hours. So when I look at ETH holistically on a high time frame view, like this is as clean as it gets for me. To make some sort of higher low, right? So if we want to argue that, we bottomed back in November, okay, $1,000 is ETH, okay, this is the higher low, this is the higher high, now we need a higher low. Well, this could be a pretty nice clean higher low compared to this one at 1350. So yeah, ETH to me is seemingly very bottomed, and I want to talk, I'm kind of harping on this at length just because this is going to inform my bias and decision making going forward on BTC, and I'll show that in just a second. So again, ETH BTC high time frame looks very bottomed, great. If we throw on ETH BTC now, and we just look to the left here, right? So this similar formation, this was a 3 inside up reversal, right, that we just kind of talked about on ETH on the 3-day. And obviously we saw some continuation after that. So point being, I would not be surprised to see some sort of continuation on ETH on the 3-day time frame for the USD pair moving forward. So, does that translate into ETH BTC bottoming here in the next day or two? Maybe, I guess remains to be seen. But let's pivot to BTC because I've been harping on ETH. So, Trip just talking about market structure being king. 3-day, again, we talked about like this 3-day zone would have been really nice, 23, 24K, 23.9, like Trip mentioned, right? But it looks like it got front ramp, right? So ETH came into that level, but BTC did not. But obviously zooming in, going to the 2-day, BTC did have its 2-day Kijun touch, which does give me cause to be kind of bullish. I'm still holding my swing shorts, but like I was just talking about Trip about this before we started the stream. What's the invalidation for a top short right here? Like, where do you kind of just decide, okay, trend has changed? If you're still holding, right? So we kind of break this downtrend here, and it's like, okay, well, what do you do? Where do you go? Where do you get back in, right? So the first thing in my mind, we could talk about liquidity and such in a little bit, but for me, it's like, okay, the monthly open was capping price so hard when we were on our way down from the monthly open that this, to me, the monthly open is like the most logical SR level, right? So as long as we're above 27.2, I think you maintain a bullish bias going forward. Can you get a lick run to sweep down here? Absolutely. But point being is, like, as long as you're closing above 27.2 on the higher time frames, you're above the monthly open, it's probably a bullish setup going into the last 10 days or so of the year. But yeah, Trip, you're talking about where do you get in? What do you do? For me right now, if I wasn't positioned, if I was long, I'd probably be looking to take some profits. If I was short, I don't know where you're shorting here, what's your invalidation, unless you're holding from before. But if you're looking to get long, I think this area here is going to be like the interesting spot. Monthly open to Monday high, 27, low 27s are kind of what I'm thinking here. What's liquidity looking like, Trip?
Yeah, let's pull up the BTC. I'm just going to share this tab here. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
So going back to like the bright yellow that we had talked about probably a month ago at 28.1 being like a huge liquidity pocket, and this is on like a 1 month look back. This isn't necessarily like 12-hour or 7-day. This was always kind of like a magnet for price.
Yep.
Now you still have liquidity like up to 29.7, right? Like there's no reason this can't
Continue up,
keep going up and not let anyone in, and that's a typical Bitcoin move. It would probably be like 25. I don't know. It's already up 15% or something. And you didn't really source this, right? So this was where, like, if you're looking at liquidity and trying to time things and where price tends to rebound a lot. I mean, you took out this right here. We basically ran 25K, right? And now we've just kind of been straight marching up. But like the 28.1, that was a big one. And now we can look at liquidation levels as a whole versus just like the heat map and see where it stands for BTC. It's loading. I mean, this is scary stuff. 654 longs to 85 shorts and 24 4.2 billion in longs.
I haven't seen that. I didn't actually look at Hyblock today. That's
Yeah, I
wild.
mean, look, someone said I got stopped out so many times. Yeah, I didn't. Like my stops were tight. Like, and I shorted the liquidity pockets of like where I thought price was going to reverse. And that, I was talking about like how I look for the exhaustion points. This is kind of an anomaly, like just which is to
Yeah,
me.
usually you don't get above 20 bill before some sort of
Dude,
reversion.
it was like 15 billion in longs, and the ratio is about 100 or so.
So gun to my head to just like interrupt you there is like I look at this chart you're showing, right? I see 24 bill in longs. I see almost like a 10-to-1 long to short skew. I see price near quarterly open. I see, bullish sentiment, et cetera, right? This is usually probably, like we said, if I was long, I'd be taking profits here. This is as good a spot as any to de-risk if you are long, unless you're planning on, compounding from much higher eventually. Right here is kind of like an interesting spot, right? 24 bill in Lick Delta. A ton of longs came in on this entire move up. We haven't had a single pullback. A pullback is very likely. It's just from where and how far. And I like, if you mind, I'm just going to switch over to my chart real quick because
Sure.
when you show me that chart, and I'm
Do you have
looking
any
at it
like
from
cloud
here.
settings where, because if this is trending, then you buy?
Yeah. So that was my next thing. So first thing is like, well, if you guys remember probably from March, actually, one of the things I love about Bitcoin, we talked about this, I think this was at like 24.2 before we went up to 27K the first time. Bitcoin, when it's like Trip said, when it's trending, it doesn't really give you the opportunity to get in. So one thing I've noticed over the years is that when you have a strong trending move coming off the bottom, right? So let's pretend 24,750 is the absolute pico bottom, generational, bull run, all whatever. The first leg of the move, the retrace from that move tends to coincide very closely with the 38.2 fib. So if we're just going to like extrapolate and game theory and pretend like, okay, let's pretend right here 28,200, this is the current high, local top we're going to put in. Okay, so from there, the move from 24,750 to 28,260, what's the 38.2 from that? That lines up with about 27K, which
you'd run the monthly open and reclaim it.
Exactly, right?
That
So that
was my thought. Like, and how patient are you to do this? But I'm sorry, 24 billion in longs.
Again, this can go up higher, right? We can even sweep the quarterly open, right? Let's say we get to 28.5, right? The 38.2 is still going to be below the monthly open at 27.80. So we'll go back to your chart in a sec. I just want to say that if you're looking for where do I get into a trending Bitcoin move, my little tidbit of non-financial advice is the 38.2 fib tends to provide a nice crisp entry in strong trending environments. But yeah, I digress.
So if you and this is where like liquidity theory has worked in ranges and that type of market, but now if we're trending, like where's the 4-hour Tenkan or Kijun?
Yeah,
right?
so
where
that was my next. Yep. So
where are those like the daily? I haven't looked at like those levels, but
so 4-hour Tenkan is 27.2. The Kijun is 26.5, but I'm going to assume that they're going to move up and probably line up with this 38.2. The 6-hour Tenkan to me is probably the most logical, right? 27.2, and then the flat cloud at 26.9, which is kind of like that 38.2 we talked about. Daily, again, we just broke past the Kijun. The Kijun is now 27.4 and the Tenkan at 26.5. So yeah, no real Ichimoku levels here other than like the higher time frame that we kind of talked about already earlier.
Yeah. What about ETH? We can look at the liquidity on ETH too.
Yeah,
I feel like it's so out of favor. Like no one really is talking about it, which makes it kind of.
Yeah, it makes it more bullish, right? Like ETH did like we talked about technically bottoming first, and ETH BTC is just free falling down, but it's not going to free fall down forever. It's going to put in some sort of low, whether it's a lower low or higher low, and then we're going to see ETH kind of rip up versus BTC.
Yeah, let's see ETH liquidity. It's loading here. I haven't looked at the heat maps on it yet, but should happen. Someone said I was breaking up. I thought my connection was okay. Does it seem all right?
I think you're good. Yeah, seems good to me. I'll pull up the chart while Hyblock loads. So just looking at ETH on the daily here. The first thing that comes to mind is the Kijun here at 1817 approximately, right? This daily Kijun. This is your mean reversion in a trending environment. And if you'll notice, since we broke the Kijun back in beginning of May, we actually never retested it even here. So this is just like a magnet to me. I think 1818 likely gets hit probably within the next 24, 26 hours, I'd assume. That's kind of my thought on ETH there. And then when you zoom in, again, even though ETH BTC is still puking, ETH to me is setting up to be more bullish just because it's had like a not a weaker move. I mean, it has had a weaker move off the bottom, but when I look at ETH BTC, it just seems that eventually it's going to put in some sort of low, right? Whether it's range lows here, it's 622, or go for a lower low, maybe towards range low like we talked about last week, right? At like 0.058. But until that happens, ETH is going to continue to perform poorly against BTC. But once it starts bottoming, I think that's when you need to start paying attention for BTC. I mean, for ETH itself, just because it's likely going to have a rebound play or a catch-up trade compared to BTC. So I can assume, BTC does its move, it consolidates, goes sideways, and then ETH kind of catches up once this finds its bottom. Yeah, what's liquidity looking like there, Trip?
So to your point around the 1820, 1810, like we haven't taken this like pocket, right? And again, this is a 1 month look back on ETH Binance. So that's the Kijun, basically, is what you just said.
Yep, exactly. Daily Kijun.
We look at the 7 day. Yeah, and I mean, look, if it's like your typical kind of the way price works, it's like Bitcoin moves and ETH moves, and then my question is, do alts actually move, or are they really under fire enough to where like they won't? And here again on the 7 day, you can see like that's your pocket, right? So
Yep.
1820, and then we can look at the actual like lick levels on ETH, but yeah, I haven't looked at the actual like notional amount on ETH.
ETH.
Yeah, my guess is
I'm gonna assume it's above 10. Just a blunt guess.
maybe like 7 or 8, or is it going to be astronomically high like Bitcoin? Whoa!
Oh wow, it's under 8.
Yeah, 5.3. So
Okay.
here's your bam, 1819.
There it is, right there. That's your top lick. That's you just leave an ask right there for a little quick scalp.
Could you really could, because you've hit 2 exhaustion points on the 1 month and the 7 day, and then this is your big 25x 109 million. So
Yep.
Then the ratio starts to get pretty skewed, and maybe that comes on a run of the quarterly open on BTC, and then it trades back below or something. 28.5. Where is it?
Yeah, 28.5.
Yeah. What's the top? I wonder what the top lick on BTC is. Let me see here. Exactly. This would be funny. We probably won't look at any altcoins this stream, guys. Like, there's instances where you have these outliers, like OP was up like 14% today. Leo showed strength. I don't know. They're gonna have these interesting moments.
Looks like top lick is like 29,170 ish.
Yeah, I mean, if we drop it a little bit, to see, yeah, it's 29. I mean, it was lower before, but like people, obviously positions enter, but
Yep.
yeah, you're running 28.6. I mean, there's no reason it can't go to 29, right?
Yeah.
This is 28.6, and this is a 50x. So if you didn't start hitting these 25s, but like even if you get 28.4, like
You'll start cascading up there.
yeah. But it's funny because I remember when I was waiting for 27.5 when price was 27.2, and there was literally a bright yellow liquidity pocket up there, and it was like this thing could cascade to 28. It never did. Price went down literally to 24.8 from there, just downtrending down. And then in one swift move, look where we are. We're literally at the zone that people thought we were going to be, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something.
Yep.
So
yeah,
to the point of like, you can identify zones, but it's really hard to figure out how price is going to get there and what path it's going to take. But when it does, it's a swift move, right? Like this Bitcoin, I don't know. I could see it going to 29K like tonight, and this is like, then everyone's like, oh, what do we do? So
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, right? So 29K tonight. I don't know about 29K tonight, but I do think, right, when you have like, I just want to talk about the structure here because like not even overlaying any, like I've seen this structure, this right here, and I'll highlight on multiple time frames, right? Like, where is it? So like you have an impulse. So you have a low. Hold on. There we go. Jumping around to me. Okay. So you have like you have a low, you have an impulse up, and then you have this right here. This little consolidation after the low is put in. I've seen this so frequently, and like just from experience, know what happens next, right? So it's like, all right, we have this here, price pushes higher, bottom consolidation, price pushes higher, and I only bring this up because I like remember it so clearly. Yeah, it was like right here. You had like a low put in here at like 40K, price pushes higher, consolidate, and then a move up. So the only reason I'm like showing this random ass fractal is because like when you have a bottom of sorts, price usually does not give you the opportunity to join the trend at any favorable price that you would like. So point being is we had the low consolidation, now we're moving up. Is this the beginning of the golden bull run that we're all so hopeful and grateful for and praying for, whatever? I don't know, but we talk about market structure, and Trip can touch on this, right? So like you can keep drawing the diagonal, right? But eventually like the diagonal breaks, no matter how many times you draw it a different way. So the fact that we're above the diagonal, you kind of have to have a bullish bias here until you lose the monthly open. And I think that's going to be my stance going in through the rest of the stream is like, I'm bullish biased on crypto, Bitcoin, ETH. I don't know how much on alts, but somewhat. As long as you're above monthly open, I think that's the bias there.
yeah, I mean, I think, what are the highs of the candles like in June, like before the breakdown? Like we just reclaimed like a met. Yeah, a little over to the right.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you're saying
So
mouse
see
will.
that giant? Remember the bullish engulfing candle on the daily, and
Yep.
then it just
This.
went
Yep.
down. So what's that?
That's 27.
27.4.
Yeah.
27.4, 27.5. I think if you get that, you literally have to long that with the belief that and you could put under 26, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, even like the current daily low, right? We like dipped below the daily and then reclaimed it, and we full sent it 5% today. So I think as long as you are above the monthly open with a stop or invalidation somewhere below mid 26s, that's probably like a good a spot as any, I'd assume.
Yeah, and then let's say that is the low. Like, where are you targeting?
Yeah, that's like the next question, right? It's like,
So
all right,
what was
bull
the
run.
percentage move off 19.6 to how much did Bitcoin move on that? Right.
I mean, it was like a 40% move or 50%, 60% move from the Pico lows.
Okay, so take 50%.
Right, 50%. So that's like what? 36s,
37.
37. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where if that is low, that's where price is going. It'll be hard to hold it all, but that like if that's the low, then like that probably relatively close to the next target. And I don't know what that is on a fib level of like the whole macro thing, but like I don't know. I don't think 32 is going to hold price.
Yeah, for me, it's like, was it the 61.8 of like the entire move? Is that what you usually used to look at?
Yeah, I mean, it's not
48s. I mean,
unreasonable to think that given what it's done in the past.
yeah. I mean, when you look at the weekly, right, it's like, I don't know. I'm just doing some like live analysis with you guys. Like I'm trying to be genuine in my approach here, and it's like I look at this weekly. I haven't looked at a chart since the weekend. This looks bullish. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah,
This
it's
looks
like
bullish. Price is bullish. Where do I get involved to trade long? I think is the question, right?
what's the top of that weekly candle? Two back?
Two back.
Yeah.
28.4, 25. Yeah.
No. The white one. Like, what's the top of that candle?
27.4.
There it is.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're saying. Like the monthly open, you get that retest.
It would front run it probably, but you take out a bunch of liquidity like lower. I mean, like, I think it's obvious. Like, we probably won't get 25/7 liquidity that we were looking at when it was 26. When it was 27/1, right? Like, you just have to come to terms that the market is probably in the early stages of trending, and that liquidity theory is not to be used. Right? It worked for a really long time, and then that's where I kind of defer to Zoran's approach of like trending Ichimoku, but like shallow pullbacks, because as long as that Coinbase premium sticks, and you can see that people are actively trying to short this, and the spot is driving it, then you have to accept that, right? So it's like, all right, where do you get in? Okay, there's your level 27.4, 27.5. If price comes down into that, then take the belief that that's your pullback, and then you're going much higher. And you're
So I like that you mentioned that, because it is kind of like a good point to kind of harp and get across, right? It's like we've been in a range. I mean, it's been the summer, right? We've been in a summer range for several months. It looked like we've kind of broke down from the range. Looks like we're back inside the range. We're still ranging, but we're starting the potential to kind of trend in one direction or another, like Tripp said. So, when price does trend, like Tripp said, shallow pullbacks are the norm. Price doesn't let you back in if it's actually going to trend. So you have to be not only, I guess, cognizant, but I guess you have to kind of bite the bullet and come to terms with the fact that you're not going to get your ideal entry, your Pico bottom, whatever, this, that, and kind of trade the market in front of you. Right? I think that's a lot of times is very difficult for people. They'll see the move happen, and then they'll just panic. They're like, all right, I saw price bottomed and moved up, and it's like, what do I do now? Okay, well, do I short the move? You short too early, you get stopped out the fourth time, and then it's like, all right, do I long the move? Okay, you're longing the top, too late. So point being is, like, now price has digested a full $3,000+ move on BTC from 24,700 up to 20,200, and it's like, what do we do now? So you just heard us kind of do our little analysis. I think we both came to terms. We're both in a bullish bias. We talked about our levels, 27 low 27s, right? That retest the monthly open, whatever the case is, and it's like, okay, so now what do we do? So we talked about all these levels. We talked about our bias. Cool. Now we actually have to identify a level, which is 27K. Okay. And now what? Now we have to fucking wait. And I think this is the part that's going to trip you guys up the most. It's like, you can see a whole move happen over the last, 3-4 days, long weekends. And it's like, you have a bias, and now you know what you want to do. And then this is the part that kills you guys. You guys start trading short, and then finally prices start going down, and you start trading long. Prices at 27.8. You're trading long again, and finally it gets down to 27K. It's right where you originally wanted it to, and then you panic, right? So again, this is just a long rant to go that when you identify a level, you have a bias, stick to the plan, just be patient, wait for prices to come there before reacting. That's at least my approach. I think Tripp has a similar approach when it comes to that.
So it's a waiting game right now. That might be painful. This is where hobbies come into play, guys.
Yes, exactly, right. Touching grass.
But like, also, it's hard to transition from a system that you've used for months around how do we remove market participants around liquidity and scalp all these little things, and now you're back into a trending range, right? When was the top in? April?
Yeah.
Basically. Okay, so it was what, 24/7? What was, like, the second week of June?
Yep.
You basically trended down in there until now there's like a break. It above 28.5 is like, I guess
territory.
Yeah, well, that's where you break the daily market structure.
Yep.
But we broke a pretty big downtrend, and we're above the 50 and 100-day moving average. Like, to me, that's enough from an early sign of like, well, 28.5 is probably going to go. Is it going to go now? Take it, or are you going to get a monthly open? Are you going to get 27K? I don't know, but I think you just need to be ready if it happens, and act in a way that, like, no matter how scary the environment is, that that's the zone, and you just do it, right? So.
Yeah, I like that. And then just to kind of echo that, right? We talked about like transitioning. We've been talking about liquidity theory the past several months, right? Price has been in a giant range where we're moving market participants up and down, and it's working like a charm. What happens when that charm and so-called system stops working, right? I think that's an important part to kind of discuss, is when one system stops working the way you expect it should, that's probably because the market conditions in which your system thrives in have changed. So liquidity theory is great for a range-bound market where market participants are being removed left and right due to excess leverage and greed. Once prices start trending one way or another, let's say up, right, with higher highs and higher lows, you can't use a range-based system. So this is where Trip and I kind of pivot to trend-based system. I always like to look at Ichimoku, and then the two, I guess, takeaways from that, which I'll show you guys, right, with Ichimoku, is you like to buy mean reversion, which is our Kijun, and we like to buy the 38.2 retracement. So again, on the daily, ETH isn't trending just yet from a daily perspective, but we just talked about that 1818, 1820 level, which is your daily mean reversion. That's like your magnet for price. Okay, well, that's a first price point. Cool. So what do we actually need to see for, I guess, a daily flip, right? So BTC is closer than ETH, but if ETH were to flip this or to continue this cloud being green, this blue line would get above the yellow line, and then you'd see this Chiku span above price. So it's still below price. Compared to 30 days ago, by Ichimoku standards, we are still in a downtrend on ETH. The reason being is because the price plotted back 30 periods is currently underneath where price was 30 periods ago. So that tells us we're still in a downtrend. So you wouldn't buy ETH based on Ichimoku breakout alone, but we're trying to figure out what preconditions, what price levels, how do we get to a point where prices may start trending again, and we want to switch our systems from range-based to trend-based. So just something to keep in mind. Once we eventually do start trending, this is where I like to look at Ichimoku, right? You have your Tenki and your Kijun-sen and your cloud, and eventually this pretty yellow line is going to be a nice buy for some sort of mean reversion as it starts trending up eventually. But yeah, I digress. That's kind of my quick and dirty on BTC ETH. What else we got going on here, Trip? What are our thoughts?
I'd say that's like a pretty good summary of my mindset. I just want to look at the traditional markets to see, like, I think like the small pullback in risk today on, like,
Yep.
NASDAQ and these guys, like, can NASDAQ come down here and, like, retest this zone? Yeah. Can the S&P come down and fill this gap, 4,300? Yep. How does crypto react to that, given that we've started basically to outperform it? Bitcoin, that is going to be pretty interesting to me. And then, if we go and look at the dollar, like, high, is this your lower high? Like, are we going to take this out? And then how does risk trade alongside that, particularly crypto? Crypto to me is like this. It's always been, it's been difficult to trade against risk. It's been difficult to trade against the dollar. And so now, like, it's in favor. And, is it worth looking at all this stuff? Personally, no. I think it's trading in vacuum by itself because
Yep.
ETF's big thing, this other exchange EDX thing with, like, Fidelity and Schwab, I didn't read all the news, but, like, there's enough in the equation, especially with the SEC going after altcoins, to create, like, a very big move in Bitcoin, right?
Yep.
And was the 19.6 thing, like, was that the banking crisis in terms of, like, what drove price?
Yeah, I think it was.
Right? So I think, as much as I don't like to go fundamental, like, narrative route, like, things that drive price, things that go up for a reason, like, well, the banking crisis was, like, extremely bullish for Bitcoin because it's been an original kind of idea of why it exists.
Yep.
And so now the second sequence of events is you got some serious guys coming in, serious entities, like with the whole ETF hype again. I mean, we've seen how that works, but this one seems to have a bit more staying power as of now, given kind of what price has done already. So when those things start to fizzle out, like the banking crisis kind of, like, fizzled out, like, it didn't become a thing. Like, I don't necessarily know when this one fizzles out, but that stuff that lures in normies and, larger players to play the upside move. And if their targets are high, then we've seen it, like, did a 50%, 60% move. So
Yep.
what it's done, like 15% now or something, okay, let's say you get a 27.5 entry and it pulls back. I don't know what that is off the bottom. 10%? If you're playing for a 50 or 60% and you're a spot buyer, like, and that's your mindset, it's not, it's going to be irrelevant. Like a 27.5 entry will be irrelevant when price is like 36. So that's also something to take into account when just like looking at crypto as a whole and relative to like what else is going on in macro and other markets.
Yeah, it's interesting also because looking at your chart, it just kind of looks like a giant range that we're forming, right? Like it looks like it, but and I think it's an SR flip on the monthly for DXY, right? But just the chart you have up there, like 100 to 104 or no 106, I guess call it. You can consider that the range, and it's like, is that the range for the DXY for the rest of the year? So whenever DXY is back at 100, you sell risk assets, and whenever it's above 10 whatever, you buy risk assets, right? Like what's the I guess takeaway from there, if there is any, right? If
Well,
there
June
isn't a
16th, it
correlation.
started to go up. So in theory, Bitcoin should have gone down,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
So, it's a trap to trade this against risk assets in my mind. Maybe it works better with like gold and some of the commodities, but the like this whole like the stock market has gone up in a straight line. It went up during like this too, and
Yeah. Good point.
so it's I don't know. I try to ignore it at this point just because it's easier to look at crypto kind of in its own world right now.
Yep.
And yeah, that's where we are. I haven't really looked at any altcoins. I haven't tried to trade any altcoins. But if there's any questions in the chat that we can field, happy to do so.
Feel free to drop them. I'm gonna take a quick look at low time frame BTC just for shits, because we talk about Ichimoku, we talk about potentially we're changing systems from trending to from ranging to trending, and it's like, okay, if I'm going to start using a trending system, Ichimoku, little I guess spiel for you guys is Ichimoku is my favorite trending indicator. It's basically a equilibrium at a glance is what Ichimoku actually stands for, Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. And what this neat fancy lines on the or fancy drawings on the screen are supposed to exemplify is it's basically supposed to show you where mean reversion happens in a trending market. So if we're going to all be in agreement that this is a trending market to the upside since 24/7, okay, great. Where do I get into this whole trend, right? So by classical Ichimoku, if you were going to trade based on the hourly, which I rarely do, but when I do, it's really only this yellow line that I'm looking at, so the Kijun Sen. So interestingly enough, Trip, on the hourly Kijun, 27.2 is your mean reversion for the entire move from 24.8 to
right. I mean, there's like a
28.2.
crazy amount of confluence. It's almost like it's too good.
Yeah, the
Like you
confluence
can draw a
is high.
diagonal, like on this chart, like this is where. Can you guys see this?
Oh, you mean yours? Yeah. 1 sec. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Right, like it was hard. This is where it like broke out, right? And there was one point where it was like you get like this move, and it's like it's either going to deviate or it's going to skyrocket out of here, and it did because we've seen deviations above diagonals and stuff, and like this was the 27.4 liquidity pocket stalled, and then it was like boom, and so it went straight to it's probably going to go to the quarterly open, right?
Yeah.
This is like your hourly Kijun and the monthly open and everything is like almost like a retest of this, and like you'd get this, but it just seems way too perfect. Like this does not. If we did get this, it would be insane. But yeah, to your point, like that's your zone, right? It's like a huge flip here too. Like
And it's like, does that zone come this week, before the end of the week, or does it happen like a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, next month, right? Like I think that's the part to kind of harp across is like, we'll talk about this zone right now on June 20th, 2023, and like this zone might not even happen until we do like 29.3 and then come back into it beginning of July 4th, right? And we come back into 27.2. It's like, remember that level, right? So we talk about this all to kind of like map out how we look at the market and approach it. But what ends up happening when price comes into that level and how you end up executing and doing business at that level is really all that matters, right? So it's one thing to be an analyst, talk charts, draw lines, it looks all good. But it's another thing to actually trade the chart when price comes into your level, for you to stick to your plan and actually execute on the trade that you mapped out, 2-3 weeks ago, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So let's say you do get this, right? Where are
The
you
most
putting
perfect.
where are you putting your stop? Below 26.5?
It has to be below mid 26s. Because that's technically like a support zone. So like 26.3 maybe would be what I'd want to see.
26.3. So what?
Yeah, I would want that to hold. I wouldn't want us to re-enter.
26. Oh, this zone here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could. So let's say you did get this trade, right? This
Yep.
is what you're playing for, and you think it's going to where 37 if it did actually go there, and if it went up here, I'd say 8.
Oh, if it did the whole, yeah. See, but in that situation, that's like a swing trade for me, and then at that point, I'm just setting my stop below 24.8.
Got it. Yeah, I just don't think you should come back down here. Really?
No, I don't think you should either, but like I wouldn't take that trade. I'd rather be like 27-2 with like a stop below 26.2 and target like 29.2. You know what I mean? Like a 2-1. So I'm not swinging for the fences, assuming that's like the macro. This is the giant gig along, because I feel like that's too risky in that scenario to just like set your stop. You're playing for a higher high, a higher swing high, but your stop is within intra week levels.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess if you did come back into here, would you long it?
That's a great question. No. If we came back into what 25.5 ish.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd buy 25.8 for a bounce, but I don't think I'd swing long from 25.8, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing I think that's important to get across is like once you have a breakout from consolidation or a base, whatever verbiage you want to use, that breakout needs to continue going in the direction it broke out in, right? And if it starts stalling or slowing down, I'm much more worried and kind of just worried for my long position or whatever direction I'm trading in, because breakouts are supposed to be explosive and aggressive, like that diagonal you're showing, right? If we didn't push through that aggressively, you would fade that. But the fact that we did is like a good sign. So I guess the point being is like as long as the reaction is strong and prices are still trending in the direction, the health of the trend is good.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Boom, boom. Here. That's your impulse.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There was no retest at 19.6.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Right. The
Yeah,
retest,
to
you
me.
bought 24.6 consolidation. If you know what I mean, that's what you did.
Mhm.
So you're gonna buy 28.5 consolidation. You know what I mean? Like it might end up being that way. But I think that's the point to remember is like when prices trend, they don't let you in. And if you're gonna get into that trend, you're gonna have to wait for it to consolidate. It's always a tough call when you're buying not the bottom or selling not the top, right? But you just have to manage your risk and kind of take a trade that makes the most sense based on where price is, and where price shouldn't go if your thesis is correct.
Yeah, I mean, we can drop some granularity on the BTC licks to see if, like, where. Here you go, right? Can you guys see this?
Yep. There's your full lick run to 27.
27. Do you get this? I mean, that would be nuts, but I don't know. Like, that 17-0 here.
Yeah.
I think you have to buy 20, the low 27s if they come.
Yeah, I agree. Because if you don't, the upside potential for missing that move, if it does end up breaking market structure and going higher, is such a loss compared to like not buying it just because you thought it might go lower, right?
Being like having seen a lot of Bitcoin moves and price action and just feeling like it's the early stages of trending and like there's
When you feel it, you fucking feel it,
dude,
deep
this
inside.
one, when we like, do you remember this thing?
Yes.
This was a TD9, like we longed this stuff and like we sold here though, or like we sold like around here.
Oh, you're still on Hyblock, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Like this 200-day. Like I remember,
Yep.
I was on a ski
Yeah.
trip, and we
I
were
was Max along with Nick at the gym, just screaming.
buying this. Sold here though, but like, and then here, like that's just kind of what it does, right?
Yeah.
So if we get one of these consolidations
That's what you
around
buy. Yep.
here,
But you had that on the daily yesterday, and that's the part I'm trying to get. Like that's what you had already on the daily.
so that's what I was saying is like
You
this.
just buy that blindly, and you just
This is
wait.
reminiscent of
Yep.
this, but
Yep.
it doesn't always repeat
Translate.
it.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, I just think that like, yes, liquidity theory doesn't matter, but 24 billion in longs is pretty scary.
Yeah, so that's actually it's kind of interesting you brought that up, right? It's like when we talk about liquidity theory, it has its value in a range, but if price is going to start trending, where's the overlap between, price is still within the range. It's, it's not above 30K, but it's still trending. It had a monster move, 3,000 point move off the bottom. And now that we're here, it's like, okay, at what point do longs get overextended? And, I think in Trip and I's time trading with Hyblock, 20 to 30 billion in cumulative lick delta tends to be around there, closer to 30 than 20, but that tends to be like the little sweet spot for mean reversion. So we're at 24 now. It's really just anyone's guess when it's going to happen, but it'll happen. But it's anyone's guess where and how far. Right? We talked about the low 27.2 level. Will it go there? Remains to be seen. But all you can do is map out the trade, and then wait to see what happens and then react accordingly.
Yeah. How long do you typically have to wait for a decision on an ETF application? I'm not the legal expert, but I think like I actually talked to a lawyer today about this. He said in 6 weeks you'll get like some sort of feedback. I think, but if you look at the past and look at like the ETF applications for Bitcoin that have tried to go through, it's been a lot longer, and then they get delayed, and the deadline gets pushed out.
And they
So
push it. Yeah, they're allowed to like kick it down the curve. Like I think
okay, he
twice
said
or three times.
minimum 45 days, max 240. There you go. So
Yeah, a month and a half from now.
can price go up for 240 days, and then when it gets approved at the top? I don't know. I don't try to think about that stuff. But look, I just it's can't really deny that it's extremely bullish for Bitcoin as a whole. So my bias is how do I get into a long position, and we'll see. Maybe go fishing in the meantime. Just set some bids.
the set and forget. Throw some deep bids and see what happens. That's the thing, right? Like take a quick second, talk about like the ETF news. That's such a bullish case for Bitcoin. Whether or not like the particulars of the trust, where there's redemptions and the fee that ETF or the BlackRock's charging on the ETF or the trust, whatever you want to call it. Point being is like this is what maxis have wanted forever, is like institutions to come in, buy their bags so they can dump on them, etc. It's just like such a slow, arduous process that doesn't happen overnight. And then when you see the first like mumblings or rumors that it's happening, people throw a fuss, especially those maxis who used to cheer for it. But point being is like this is a net positive for the space, but like we talked about with Fidelity and a few other bigger events that happened in the past, this takes time to manifest, right? You're not going to see these giant flows come in tomorrow. Although they're speculative flows, those actual flows aren't going to come in for a very long time. So it's all bullish news in theory, but it's going to take a little more time for that to actually happen in practice.
Yeah, I mean, the other week or a couple weeks ago was China, and like the Asian markets getting involved more in crypto. So like, is this the perfect?
We forgot all about that, didn't we?
Yeah, I don't know. Could be. So we'll see. I don't know how much more I can analyze price, but it's going to be interesting to see if it runs the quarterly open, or after the close, you actually get a lick run. It wipes a bunch of guys out, goes to the 27, and then that's that. So it is getting to like okay, when do these guys who are longing up here get at least rinsed a couple percentage points?
Just
that hasn't happened at all. And do we have anything? I don't think there's really any like macro events coming up or anything like that.
No, we just had our events, right?
Yeah.
Good for till next month.
Right. And that's kind of funny that you have like pullback in equities when you did
There's
CPI and
nothing going on.
Yeah. So we'll see. Crypto seems to be in favor right now for the speculative players out there.
Yeah, it's funny because like our last stream, we literally said crypto fell out of favor. And then what is it? 5 days later, we say crypto is back in favor. But that's just the space, right? Like that's just how things go. Like everything can be so bleak and FUD, and sentiment can be at all-time lows, and then BlackRock says what's up, and market just pivots on the flip of a dime. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the rest of the week. I think, as we mentioned, that quarterly open being run could be a potential short setup. Not going to suggest it. But 27.2, the monthly open retest, Monday high retest, something around there is probably going to be your best bet for getting into a long position if you believe the trend has changed and we are going to start trending in one direction, which would be up in this case. So
underwater on my short at 27,200. Should I close? Where was your invalidation?
Jeff, my friend Jeff. We don't give financial advice on the stream, but we do like to say you should always have a plan for where you exit a trade in profit and where you exit a trade at a loss. That's called invalidation and a target. If you don't have either of those, I would rethink your trade, potentially close it and reopen it later when you have a better idea of what you're doing with it. But until then, I really would strongly encourage you to focus on a trading plan and a trade journal and kind of figure out why you took a short at 27.2. Is it because you saw a buddy on Twitter do it, or is it because you had like an idea with invalidation and a target, etc.? So yeah, I think that about wraps it up for today, guys. It's been a fun episode. Talked BTC and ETH, gave some more higher time frame analysis, kind of going into the rest of the year and the rest of the summer. So we'll see what happens going into the rest of the week. With that said, Captain Cole signing out. Take care, guys.
See you later, guys.